The purpose of this exercise is to ensure that we tighten our security and we ensure that we catch them or smoke them out wherever they are. We are under siege. Dziko lathu tili pamavuto azaoneni. Ati challenge ma Burundi kuti palibe angakonza economy. Boma la South Africa labe mphaso ekufuna anthu ena. Some of them they're bringing in drugs. Some of them they're bringing in dirty money. Do you have evidence that the Homeland Security has used the 750 million kwacha? Bring it here.
We should be able to actually accept that on this part, we have failed the refugee community.
And yet, even up to now, there's been no evidence provided that refugees living outside the camp were posing a security threat.
The door is open here. Come and talk to us. People are coming into your offices to give you incentives. We'll give you laptops, we'll train you. I know them. And those things are forcing you to write stories that are baseless, which is not good. Then the government in association. Mubida human rights, I did withdraw Brandwa O. I did withdraw to whether another million was a million.
May 17, 2023 marked the beginning of a government-led crackdown on refugees in Malawi, starting in Lilongwe and later extending nationwide. Thousands were forcibly relocated to Dzaleka Refugee Camp under the stated aims of national security, economic stability, and crime prevention. But 2 years later, one question remains: what about the human cost? Where is the promised progress? Where is the justice? Instead of protection, many found themselves behind bars. Women, children, people who once fled conflict in search of peace, detained, stigmatized, and stripped of dignity. A man who knows the refugee struggle firsthand, Innocent Magambi, spent the first 27 years of his life as a refugee. He has dedicated his life to advocating for the dignity and rights of those displaced. He is also the author of the memoir Refugee for Life, My Journey Across Africa to Find a Place Called Home, in which he documents his fight for justice and a place to call home.
I have always considered the Malawi home, and Dzaleka has always felt like my village. The sense of connection I have with Dzaleka is something I can't find elsewhere. It's a feeling of home that's deeply embedded in my heart. Though I was forced to leave Malawi because of the dangers associated with my work, the spirit of Malawi and Dzaleka stays with me. My dedication to advocating for the refugees is as strong as ever, and it will never, ever fade.
The purpose of this exercise is to ensure that we tighten our security in this country. Komanso muzoti bo Malawi lakana antangapo 522. Amena bezeka udadala ankondo mene koko 44. Anali ma generals, ali Malawi, ali mizimu. Kodi niyo atulankani mungaziro zimene zochitika muziko muno ndeuti feti kandi tendere kutsogolo.
The truth is far from what the government claimed. The minister never provided evidence linking the 522 asylum seekers who are in the category of not of concern to any war or military activity. Yet my office has received credible reports that many of them later obtained refugee status through corrupt means. Whistleblowers allege that each individual paid between 1.2 to 2.1 million Malawi kwacha in exchange for the status. While we cannot independently verify every claim, the official record shows that by November 2024, the number of individuals in the not of concern category had dropped to just 31. So what happened to the rest, the 491? This becomes even more troubling when you consider that the Refugee Committee, the only body legally mandated to approve refugee status, has not met since 2021. The Refugee Department must provide clear and transparent explanation.
Government used the national security line as a justification for the relocation. And one of them was that refugees living outside the camp is posing a security threat. No evidence was provided. Even up to now, there's been no evidence provided that refugees living outside the camp were posing a security threat.
As part of the relocation, many refugees lost not just their homes, but their livelihoods. Containers filled with goods like soya and groundnuts, many owned by hard-working refugees, were confiscated without due process. These goods were never returned.
It didn't make sense that the refugees, most of them were living outside the camp, relying on themselves, be doing businesses, looking after themselves without having to rely on the government. Now, those people that were self-reliant are now being pushed into a situation where they have to be dependent on the government, which is also not willing to provide support to them. So for us, it didn't make sense. The lives of many refugees have gone really drastically low. They've gone down. People that were able to support themselves are no longer able to support themselves.
Dear Noba, in your mind, a fund, ama human rights. Put at the cherry for summer. Be very, you know, you ain't indeed. It's a learning with this. Only Adua, I will read my mama. Koma, I got very a man in Bamau. I got command and this men and doing up full of bank. You know, are you any? There is here in Muzadenga Udindo Mino, Kaina Pedro, Gadan,
Members of the press and civil society tried to follow the money by tracing expenditures and exposing irregularities. What they found painted a troubling picture: resources misused, voices silenced, and the truth contested.
And our question is, do you have evidence that the Homeland Security has used the 750 million kwacha? Bring it here, right now. I want to see it. You know the problem, if we arrest you, you say they're arresting media. But you know, you are fabricating false stories, which is not good. I want to warn media. Let's be realistic. The door is open here. Come and talk to us.
Minister did not feel okay with the story. They asked our editors to track that story. But we had documents. We stood by our story up to now. And the government indeed used a lot of money for relocation. But up to now, I don't think the money was used to the intended purpose.
In an article published by The Nation on November 13, 2024, a senior official from the Department of Refugees provided the evidence that the minister requested. She confirmed that the department had indeed received 720 million kwacha during the 2023-2024 financial year, and that, quote, a bigger chunk was for the relocation of refugees back to the camp. With these conflicting accounts now on public record, one from a visibly defensive minister, the other from within his own department, one question remains. What happens when official narratives no longer align with the facts? And who is held accountable when the truth finally surfaces? With alarming reports of human rights violations during the forced relocations across the country, we reached out to the Malawi Human Rights Commission to understand what actions have been taken in the 2 years since.
We began the documentation process, but in terms of the actual action, be it taking the matters to court and maybe even detailed investigations, my understanding is that not much has happened, and we should be able to actually accept that on this part we have failed the refugee community, because more could have been done to ensure that justice is done for the victims. A number of individual cases were experienced. People lost property, people lost money, and some were physically violated, including those that might have been raped. I have not seen any conclusion to any of those matters. And this is where I am saying that I think collectively we could have done better, and collectively we could actually have taken action to make sure that these people get justice. As it is, there is no justice because things were just documented, but without corrective action.
The forced relocation was not carried out by security forces alone. Some local groups actively participated, arresting refugees, looting their properties, and profiting from their suffering. Yet, 2 years later, not a single member of this group has been held accountable.
We cannot let injustice continue. Refugees are people, not political scapegoats. The international community must act. Malawians must demand accountability. The confiscation of refugee properties, the destruction of their livelihoods, it was all done under the pretense of national service. Yet, 2 years down the line, nothing has changed for the better.
2 years in limbo, 2 years of waiting, 2 years of quiet resilience. We need a progressive refugee act that restores dignity. Refugees who have lived in Malawi for decades, many of whom were born here, deserve the right to move freely, to access education, and to work. They must be given a chance to contribute. It is time for change.